let me know. We're now recording. So I'm going to call this meeting to order. Vivian, could we have a roll call, please?
Stewart. Amy Evans.
Here.
Vivian Davis. Tom Tarkowitz.
Here.
Janisha Morris.
Here.
Paul Watson.
Here.
And we have Mallory, we have Christy, and we have Doug.
And Matt's over there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Matt.
Matt, yes.
Okay, let's move on to approval of the agenda. Is there any additions that anybody would like to make? Mallory, we had everything on here so that we know. Okay.
Correct. New business B. Yep, it's on.
Oh, did you add something else, Mallory?
Just the one that I sent yesterday, the congressionally directed spending budget.
Yep.
All right. Also, just Peter is online with us here, so he'll be listening to us. So can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Watson.
Support.
So we have a motion by, you got it, Matt? Let me know if you need anything. Thank you. We have the minutes of the November 26th meeting that was proposed to us. Is there any changes to that? If not, I will request a motion and a second to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, Matt has that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right. Public comments on agenda items. This is time, if there's the audience, I see we have a visitor here. Welcome. If there's any comments you'd like to make with what's on the agenda, we also have a section on the end if you have some comments. So please feel free at that time to let us know. Nothing on the consent agenda, presentations. Let's get down to the finance report with our new treasurer, Amy.
I shared with you a copy of the report. We have an invoice from Bluefish. It's their last. It is for the first, or for all of October and the first week of November. Design services for the marketing campaign, design services, paid social media campaign, final ad submissions, parade banner, printing of additional brochures, media placements and newsprint, streaming radio, digital display, outdoor, and scene magazine. The total is $24,500, which will complete their contract with us. Do we need to approve this as a group, or are we good to pay it? We have some questions that we want to ask before we do so. But I didn't know if we have to, as a group here, approve this.
I think it'd be a good idea that we would recommend payment to Bluefish pending any final questions we have. I think it's a large amount, enough amount that it'd be good to do.
Okay.
So would you like a motion this time, or if you want to finish your report and then we do that, whatever?
Whatever you think is best.
We can just accept the report with everything because we officially approved the budget and this is the final piece. There's nothing else coming
Right.
anyway. We have to approve it again, but we can accept your report at the end of it.
That would
Okay.
suffice then. Okay.
Okay. And then I have spoken to Kara Mead at Michigan, Southern Michigan Bank and Trust. She received the minutes. Thank you, Matt, for sharing them, designating me as the new treasurer. She has a form that she's sending to Eric and I. She did send one yesterday, but needed our new business address, which is going to be the same address as Battle Creek Unlimited, if we all agree to that. That's going to be later on the agenda, I believe. So if we approve that address, then that's what will be in their records for us, and we can sign the form that's needed to make me an authorized signer for the account and to gain access online. I've spoken with Christina here at the City of Marshall regarding what we need to submit to them for ACH tax payment deposits. And while they don't have a form, I have a letter that I prepared. In that, they ask for an email address for remittance to be emailed to each time there's a deposit. So I have my email on there and I just want to make sure everybody's okay with that. So I haven't given it to her yet because I wanted to confirm that. And same with the city of Battle Creek has a form and Springfield has a form, and I have both of those also completed with my email address, as long as that's okay, for remittance. So we know when there's a deposit made.
Great.
So that's something that I was hoping for you all to approve as well. And then with Albion, I have spoken to Sonia, their deputy clerk and treasurer. She was going to check with their accounts payable clerk to see if they have an ACH form and then email that to me. I spoke with her, that would have been last Friday. I called yesterday and left a message to inquire about that again. When I talked to her last Friday, she said that the first deposit wouldn't be until later the end of this month or the beginning of the year. So it's okay that we haven't received that yet. And then and I got everyone's names from a document that was prepared by Linda and shared with us on the 26th. And it had on there the Calhoun County Equalization Department. And so I reached out to them last Thursday, left a message, called yesterday, and spoke to Lisa, who said that she had forwarded my voicemail to Melinda, the deputy treasurer, but said that Melinda's on leave. But then I started to wonder, and this is a really silly question, but they're not sending us tax payments, right? Was Linda just notifying them, the county equalization department, that she had sent that form to all of the communities? So they had an awareness that the form L4029, the 2024 tax rate request form. So in her report, she said that she sent it to the 4 cities and the county deputy equalization director and county clerk. Was that just for notification purposes and not for, I guess that's where I'm unclear.
Yeah, it seems like it's a silly question, but my experiences with countywide millage is not necessarily ones that are just in the city. So if you'll get the same bill money and different things, I'm guessing that would come directly from county if you do.
So I do need to
Definitely need to check.
call. So Lisa gave me a phone number for the Treasury Department, I think. Is that the name of the department?
Yeah.
That Melinda works in, and she said somebody else there should be able to help me. But that's when I reached out to you because I was like, well, maybe this is a silly question and
I think reach out to them.
so I can do that. All right.
The other time, I'm not sure how that works, but is delinquent taxes after a certain date next year, all the taxes bills are forwarded over to the county to be delinquent. And as those come in, I don't know the flow. So that would be one of the other reasons you'd probably want to talk to the treasurer's office at the county, so.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so that's all of my finance and budget report.
Well, thank you very much. So, can we then accept the December 10th finance and budget report?
So
Okay.
discussion, I will follow up with Sonia when I get back to Albion to see.
Okay, thank you.
Either if she's out of the office and someone else can
Mhm.
send it to you, or to remind her to send it to you.
Since got a motion to accept the report, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you, Amy, for filling in so quickly and taking out
Thank
these duties.
For your patience and your grace as I'm learning.
Yeah. Okay, moving on, we don't have any public hearings. Unfinished business, anything from the LAC? I guess Christie, okay.
Do not have anything
as of right now. The next task we will have to do is, as we get moving, we'll have to set a date for the next meeting. If there's any like vehicle that we have to.
Approach the mic that way, it's picking it up on recording.
Do you want me to
It
do
doesn't
that
pick it
again?
up.
Yes.
With-
So for the LAC, we don't have a meeting set right now. The next step in the process would be once we are doing some of our planning for TAC. We'll set a meeting date, and then if they have to review any vehicle accessibility for the next year, then they will have to do that at the beginning of the year. Okay?
Thanks, Christie.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to contracts and marketing follow-up. Is there any, I know we talked about extending or having a new contract with Bluefish. Mallory, can you sort of give us an update on what's happening there?
Yes, so as Amy mentioned, that invoice that you received from Bluefish is the last invoice on the contract that the city held with the $49,000 for Bluefish. That closes out that PO and that contract. And currently the only contract open that the city of Battle Creek holds on behalf of the TAC is the one for the Michigan Transportation Connection, which is our consultants. Any contracts that you would want moving forward, such as extending an agreement with Bluefish or procuring new marketing and communication services, would need to be procured by the TAC using the dollars that you guys currently have. And part of that would be establishing a procurement or purchasing policy first. So I can give that update now or later.
Well, it's on the agenda, so let's go and do it now while you're here.
Okay.
While you're there.
So there are several policies that the TAC is going to need to have. Purchasing or procurement is probably the most pertinent. Can't spend the money that you have coming in until you have a policy that says how you spend it. I know that there was a draft policy that Tom worked on previously, but FTA has very different procurement requirements compared to municipalities. And so in this instance, it would probably be best to utilize your consultants to draft those policies. So at the direction of Eric and the board, we've directed the consultants to go ahead and begin drafting those policies. Some of those other policies include things like Title VI and ADA, as well as, in the future, any employee policies or board policies, including an employee handbook. All of those things you could utilize your consultants to draft. But first and foremost, hopefully by the January meeting, this board has a procurement policy to approve so that then if you were interested in extending your agreement with Bluefish or procuring new services through Bluefish, you would have the authority to do that, utilizing the local dollars that you would have coming in at the end of December and beginning of January. So I would suggest moving forward with that. We've communicated with Peter and Clark already on the development of that procurement policy, and we can anticipate something in January for this board to review.
Any questions for Mallory on that? Amy?
Regarding moving forward with them, there's been a question whether it be myself as the treasurer or perhaps Mallory, our technical assistance provider, with the expertise and better understanding. And I think you've worked with them all throughout this already with their work with us, right? Where I haven't. So I'm wondering if we do want to contract with them again, and maybe even with the questions that we have right now that we want answered before we pay the invoice, would that best be done by me contacting them or Mallory?
Clarification, which contract?
Yes, I'm referring to both. The current one, the questions that
The
we,
Bluefish.
Oh, the Bluefish.
Bluefish, yeah.
Okay, got it.
the current one, and whether we go for a new one, like, starting those conversations as part of.
Thank you.
So I would recommend before paying that final invoice that you ensure all deliverables are delivered. That would include, we talked before about any trademarks or registration that needs to be done. Making sure that the board understands the domain registration period. Is that going to need to be renewed soon? What length of time did they purchase it for? As well as just the overall media package, ensuring that the board owns that material, including things like colors used, font used, different logo assortments. So say you wanted to go get business cards printed, you have the logos and everything you need for all of that without having to reach back out to Bluefish. That would be my recommendation prior to paying that final invoice. And I think to Amy's point, the question is who makes that contact, that final contact with Bluefish to get those deliverables?
I guess my feeling, since Eric has worked closely with Bluefish or yourself, one or the other, I would recommend. I don't see that you need to step in now, if you're okay with that. You got enough to go on.
I'm okay with whoever's the best person for it.
Okay, let's continue with Eric and Mallory and let's get that stuff in our
Okay.
hands.
And we will get that added to the OneDrive so that it's accessible.
The other question I think you asked in there, Amy, was commenting to the questions that are coming through on the contact page. I think that's there were some of those shared, but Mallory, you've been answering. Why don't you just told me a few minutes ago that you've made contact or replied to.
All of the comments that have come through the Ride Calhoun contact us page, all of those have been answered as of Friday. Since then, about 7 more have come in and that have not been replied to yet.
So right now, Mallory's been and staff has been answering those questions that have come in.
Yes, thank you for that.
That's good, because I wondered how you were going to handle that. So have you gotten feedback from your comments?
Nobody has replied to the responses.
So question, I have, Mallory, now that Bluefish has completed their contract, shall I send information that I have directly to you, or where does that information go in terms of postings and things like that?
I think you could continue to send it to us and we'll work through getting stuff posted. So for example, we posted the agenda and the previous minutes last night. The website got updated last night for today's meeting. I would say until there's a new contract in place with Bluefish, they're probably not gonna, they may, out of kindness, do those things. but-
Because I sent it last week.
Okay,
Yeah, with the initial draft.
Yep.
I think not the inclusion. that we
Correct.
made, But I didn't get a response.
yeah. And I would say their contract is complete at this point. And so, they may not be able to provide us that assistance without a new contract. But we do have access to the website and we can update those things. I would say we can continue doing it that way for the next month or so, hopefully until a new contract is in place. And I have more on how you can finance that going forward.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, Mallory.
You're welcome.
Unless somebody knows differently, I think Eric is still working on the insurance.
So I am gonna go through Linda's binder that I have and see if I can find any of the items that she had. I'm afraid those may be in her email. My first flip through of her binder a couple weeks ago, I didn't see anything about the directors and officers insurance. I didn't find any quotes. I will look again, but I'm afraid they might be in her email.
Mhm.
I know Eric received a quote from Wargis, but I'm not sure what that quote amount was. I have not seen that quote, but I would recommend that at the January meeting, the board take action to adopt an insurance policy.
Yeah, he had mentioned to me that we didn't have the quotes printed and that we should, I had the impression that he said we should vote off of what was presented by Linda in the November 12th report, going with the local company is the impression I had from him. But I think waiting till January makes good sense where we can actually have
The
it,
quotes in
either
front of you.
hers or his in hand to vote from instead of numbers. And it doesn't even have the business names in there. So I think that would,
Correct.
Make good
I think to
sense.
have the 2 quotes directly in front of you would be beneficial.
We'll have it on the January agenda.
Yep.
Good. All right. We need to take some action ahead. First, let's deal with the changing of the TAC mailing address. Amy, if you would,
yeah,
or just for the public, we were using Linda's home address, and then need to change all documents, bank accounts, et cetera, to the mailing address that Amy's going to tell us. Then I'll need a motion to approve that, actions.
Sorry, I don't usually have my phone out, so I had to get it because that's where the address is. 4950 West Dickman Road, Suite B2, and that's Battle Creek, Michigan 49037. And this is Battle Creek Unlimited's building. And they're working on paperwork for us now if we, as a board, approve to have this be our new business address. And it sounds like there would just be a small fee and we wouldn't have to use anyone's home address. The business.
Can you repeat that?
Sure. 4950 West Dickman Road, Suite B2, B as in boy, 2, and that's Battle Creek, Michigan, 49037.
Anybody have any questions on that action? Yes, Janisha.
Just, do we know what the fee would be yet?
I have not
It's okay.
received that information, just that it would be very small.
Okay.
Can you what is Battle Creek Unlimited?
It is an economic development and community development organization for the city of Battle Creek. I
Okay.
think it's been 50 years. They
Okay.
just have their 50th anniversary. And so they, somebody else would probably answer this better, but my understanding is that they administer or oversee the tax increment financing for Fort Custer. They manage that whole area and also do a lot of things in downtown Battle Creek. And of course, we know they were heavily involved and owner of the DoubleTree. Is that?
Temporarily owner.
Okay. So somebody else might be able to, that's
It's
a
the-
very brief one.
It's the equivalent of the AEDC for Albion.
Okay,
Thank you.
I heard the name a lot, but
No,
I
you're
didn't
good.
know its actual function.
They do a lot.
Yeah, it's exactly the same organization like the AEDC.
Economic development, community development.
So may I get a motion then to use the BCU offices for our official mailing address? And to authorize Eric and Amy for all paperwork that needs to be changed.
So moved.
Support.
So we got a motion, support, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We have a new address. Thank you. We also, we took care of the bank signatures, am I correct? Or do we need to take action on that?
She's just waiting for this address, so I will be able to provide that to her. Well, I shared it with her. Now I need to share with her that the board approved it as an acceptable address for TACC. And then she is going to electronically send email documents to be electronically signed to Eric and myself for authorized signatures and online access.
And we'll also have to change our EIN, our federal and state on our employee identification number and I believe the state, so
We have to change the number or
Change
just
the address.
Okay,
change the address.
okay. Do you have that paperwork that,
I will get it. I have the checkbook for you. Maybe you and I can set up a meeting and go through Linda's binder to see
Okay.
what we can find for Sam.
okay.
Is there anything else under the follow-up on bank signatures, tech address, and contacts with cities? Not, we will move on. Mallory, you're up next on follow-up on from, and I'm not sure if Peter's still with us, if,
Yeah, I think Peter just signed off and Clark signed on. They were filling in for each other. So
Okay.
I just admitted Clark in. If you'd like to hear from him, we can have him come off mute. I'll start on the follow-up from the TAC work session. So I thought we had good start to our work session 2 weeks ago on the 26th. Really, our goal of that meeting was to develop a timeline and get some solid plans moving forward. Obviously, we want to maintain the momentum and the excitement that we have as a board and as a group, but also ensure that we're providing timely communication to the public so that everybody knows what to expect. To be honest, I don't feel that work session necessarily with a solid plan or anything concrete to move forward on. And so I suggested that we establish a smaller working group to kind of outline what the goals of the next session might be so that we can make more progress in less time. So the first meeting of that smaller group will be today. And that does not include the consultants. That is just a small working group of staff and a couple of board members to drive forward some of those, I guess, topics more, not make decisions, but to identify what are the things that then we need to bring to the board as a big group to discuss and make decisions on. Some of those things include things like the service area boundaries we were talking about with the authority or with the consultants, fair structure, timeline, 30, 60, 90-day deliverables, and then a communication plan to the public for that. So today, we have 2 hours set aside to be able to kind of go over those things that need to happen, the things that we as staff identify needing to happen, and then kind of put the puzzle pieces in order to create a timeline of what has to happen before that can happen. So, for example, the TACC should probably secure legal counsel, maybe an accounting firm, things like that. And as we identify, yeah, those are things we're going to need sooner than later, realized, well, before we can do those things, we need a policy that says how we procure those services. So a brainstorming session where we can identify the immediate tasks that the board wants to complete, and then the things that may need to happen before that. So that is happening today. I know one of the tasks that came out of the workshop is that we will work with the consultants to get a listing of assets and open grants. FTA has also requested that, so we will work with the consultants and with FTA to establish a full listing of assets and a full listing of all obligated and unobligated grants. So we have several grants out there that have not been obligated. Obligated means that they are awarded, but haven't officially been put into a grant. So they're kind of like out there in the universe, they're allocated to us, they can't go to anything else, but we only have 4 years to actually get them on paper and assigned into a grant. That is when they become obligated. So we have a few awards that are out there unobligated. We have several awards that are already obligated. And so we just have to work with FTA to identify which of those is the city going to obligate and which of those will the TACC, will we just wait and have the TACC obligate? And then, of course, the assets that go along with it. We are currently working to identify what those assets are and what the remaining federal interest in them is. So, for example, buses have a useful life of 12 years. So if we have a bus that's 6 years old, there's about 50% federal interest remaining in it. So that means that if the feds paid $400,000 for that bus 6 years ago, they still have about a $200,000 interest in it. And so they pretty much direct where it can go. If you don't have any questions, I can turn it over to Clark, and Clark can provide any updates or work plan items that they may have after the workshop, but I'm happy to answer anything that you may have.
The question is, once the ideas are discussed, when will communication be made publicly, so to speak?
So hopefully soon. That's kind of the point of, I don't want to say rushing this meeting, but trying to get this meeting as soon as possible, this internal working group. Because then that should come back, those are not decisions. Those are, thoughts that would come to the larger board, either through another work session or just in a general board meeting for the board to actually take action on. So once the board takes action on an item, you would be able to begin communicating that immediately. It's public information. I do think it's important that your communication be concise and consistent. And so that 30, 60, 90-day plan, I would be probably the first thing I would recommend getting out into the public. And again, this may be where a contract with Bluefish or another marketing firm may be helpful in developing that communication. How do you want it to look? Do you want it to be illustrative? Do you want it to be a graphic? Do you want it to be more of a narrative? Do you just want it to be a list of items? How do you want the public to receive this communication and through what channels? So that could be in the form of public open houses or workshops, whatever the board decides. But I think that immediate communication is important. I would say after the holidays, beginning in January, the board should really focus on communications to the public.
I think Albion is a little bit fortunate because our statements are going to go out the end of the month. And maybe we have some of those questions answered that were not answered in the Battle Creek area before, the computers started since.
Yeah. And we're still working on a frequently asked questions that I think might be helpful for people to be able to answer their own questions or to be able to see that there is a thought about it out there, right? Even a frequently asked question may provide some sort of communication to the public. It's just not, it's not pretty, and we're not going to them with the information. They still have to come to us for that information. So, are there any questions for me?
Can we?
Hear from Clerk?
Sure.
Clerk, are you on?
I am. Thank you, Mallory. Peter is still on as well, so let me make a few comments, and then he may want to add some thoughts. First of all, so that you are all aware, we are going to divide responsibilities internally ourselves so that Peter is handling the FTA communications and issues that fall under their purview. I will be the point person on the consulting team who will handle communications with MDOT. That just simplifies things. Sometimes it'll be necessary for us to communicate with both, but that we think will work out well. In terms of policies, at your January meeting, we'll be bringing back a number of policies for your consideration, some that we'll tag as being high priority, which hopefully we can discuss and move forward on at the January meeting. And then there should be some additional ones that you'll have some time to look them over. They won't be quite as urgent to pass in January. I do have a collection of draft policies and sample policies from a number of other agencies that I've been collecting now for some time. So we'll be able to work from those. Every transit agency is unique, and the TACC is no different. There are basic commonalities, but then there are unique situations, and we want to be sure that we take those into consideration and come up with the best draft policies in the interest of the TACC that best serve your needs and interests. So that's, in a nutshell, that's how we're proceeding for the upcoming January meeting. Anything, Peter, that you wanted to add?
Yes, one of the things is that I have asked FTA already to inform me about how we can move with designated recipient status. And I'll be securing an FDA compliant purchasing and procurement policies, probably from other agencies as well, so that we have something that's already been approved. I'm assuming that the next meeting that we're going to be asked to join will be the one in January. I think it's January 14th. So that would be my plan as to how we're proceeding with that. For the purposes of meeting with you, if you ever want us in person, be glad to, but I think it just is more prudent for your financial concerns for us to join on Zoom meetings like this, and then we can respond to anything you want. We can be present that way. I'm looking forward to all the success in the next few months here.
Questions from the board or from technical staff? I think those policies, we will be scheduling our January 14th meeting. Probably should get those policies in the hands, our hands. I'm thinking of a date so that they can go out in an agenda on Friday. So we at least have them over the weekend to look over. So that would be, I'm trying to think of the date, it'd be 7th. Should have those in our hands by January 9th. Is that sound good to the board and Clark and Peter?
Should be no problem for us.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Any questions? We're going to be rolling here now, so. So thank you again. And we're going to move on with our meeting and then look forward to seeing you in the new year. Okay.
Thank you very much. I'll sign off now.
Okay. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Clark. All right. Next thing on our agenda is actually our meeting dates in January, so very timely. I pass those down. Sorry, this didn't get to you. I put this together. What you will see is the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month on here. At the end of the, we need to adopt the 25 calendar. So this, I can get more of those if you need. And I did leave off the last meeting in December, like we're doing this month. It will always fall right around Christmas. So I don't think we're against any holidays here, but so if everybody is okay with this schedule, if we could just have a motion to approve our 2025 meeting dates.
So moved.
Support.
Any concerns or dates that jump out at you? I tried to cover them all, but. And what I did here is I said we'd be meeting in this building. That way we can have the opportunity to move downstairs if we need to, the training room or council chambers here. So. Got a motion support to approve our 2025 calendar. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We have a schedule. All right. Was there an item added? Okay, I didn't hear that. I'm assuming Mallory, you're going to help us.
Okay, so new business item B is the congressionally directed spending budget allocations. Does anybody need a copy of the budget breakdown that I supplied last night?
I got the one from before, but I didn't print the one from last. Thank you.
So, almost 2 years ago now, we had applied for congressionally directed spending, or earmark, dollars on behalf of the TACC. At the time, the TACC was not, I don't even think the TACC was officially created yet by the county commission. And there definitely was not a board. We applied for $3 million to Senator Peters for startup funds for the Transportation Authority of Calhoun County. Those startup funds included things like capital purchases for vehicles, it included planning and design activities, marketing activities, administration, things like that. Fortunately, the TACC received 1.5 million. So we asked for 3, 1.5 was awarded. And that was in fiscal year 2024's THUD bill. So Transportation, Housing and Urban Development. And so that money is awarded officially or technically to the city of Battle Creek on behalf of the TACC for startup expenses associated with creating this authority. The budget breakdown needs to be revised because the application budget breakdown was for 3 million and now we have 1.5. So this board needs to kind of reallocate what that 1.5 will be used for. Now, 1.5, as a reminder, represents the federal share. So that represents 80% of the total cost, meaning the total award is 1.875, with that other 375,000 coming from MDOT. I have provided what I would recommend that budget breakdown be that still aligns with the same scope and intent of the original application. So you can't deviate from what the original intent of the funds were for. But now that it is time for us to obligate these funds, we have to break it down into a more granular level by what's called ALI, or activity line item. So in order for us to put those into a grant, we have to let FTA know all the way down to, the singular dollar, what is going to be spent where. These sometimes can be changed, but with congressionally directed spending, it is very, very difficult to change what these dollars are for. So it's important that this board agree on how those dollars are allocated, because you may not be able to change those later, even if it is for the same intent, because it would require an act of Congress. So I also previously provided the actual application that we submitted that awarded these funds. And primarily, we talk about the need for the dollars to cover the expense of standing up the authority and then transitioning things from the existing services over to the authority. And so the recommended budget breakdown that I provided includes or represents what those transitional costs may be for the most part. So for example, I am recommending $200,000 be allocated to ITS, which is Intelligent Transportation Systems. That is not representative of what it would actually cost to procure those items, but rather what it would cost to add additional licenses to the existing services that would transfer over to the authority. So Battle Creek Transit, we already have a grant for about $1 million to purchase an entirely new ITS system. This 200,000 would be representative of the additional expense of adding additional vehicles, such as Marshall Dial-A-Rides vehicles or any other vehicles that you guys may procure, as well as that licensing that may go along with it. I have $50,000 set aside for the actual capital associated with that. So that's vehicle antennas, tablets, installation of those technologies. I have $150,000 allocated for communications equipment. So currently BCT has about $400,000 set aside to upgrade our existing communications equipment. This would be like radios and dispatch equipment, because right now our equipment is, handheld radios that only work within the city limits of Battle Creek. Obviously, we need to be able to communicate throughout the county. And so we have $400,000 set aside. I am suggesting 150 out of this grant go to cover the expansion of those services. Computer equipment, I'm suggesting 75,000, and that includes all of the additional things that will need to be purchased to operate on the administrative side. So DART equipment, for example, is DART property. It's City of Marshall property. And so purchasing things like computers, headsets, printers, copiers, phones, things like that, that currently may be city properties and not transit assets. I have $250,000 set aside for planning, design, and professional services. To me, this is an important and almost immediate expense that we would be looking at to hire a third party to do route assessments, route planning, route design, brochure development, bus stop inventory. So one of the things that this board needs to decide is, what does fixed route service look like in the city? And does it mirror what's there today, or does it get improved? And I think that this 250,000 would allow you to hire somebody to come in and actually evaluate, optimize, and perhaps present a new vision of what fixed route service could look like, and then the associated bus stop inventories that would go with that. $150,000 would be set aside for marketing and professional services, which includes the ongoing brand development, website management, social media, management, all of the things that we've talked about continuing can come out of this grant, with marketing or professional services. We have $175,000 set aside for contracting and vehicle rebranding, just altogether rebranding. That may actually, depending on what FTA says, that may need to get rolled up into that marketing line item and have it completed by that third-party marketing company. But depending on the size of the vehicle, we're looking on average about $10,000 per vehicle to be wrapped. So currently we have a fleet of Marshall Dial-A-Ride vehicles and we have a fleet of BCT vehicles that are individually branded. We're looking at about 25 or more vehicles that will need to be rebranded under the Ride Calhoun name. And that's what that $175,000 represents. I have $450,000 or the remaining amount after that set aside to purchase up to 6 expansion vehicles. That can include minivans and full-size vans, but I essentially removed the line item that was previously submitted in the grant application for cutaway style buses. So Battle Creek Transit, we currently have funding to buy 4 cutaway buses. Is all Marshall Dial-A-Ride has in their fleet. And so I think we're pretty well set on that cutaway style of vehicle. And we can look at expanding the full-size vans and the minivans. And so 450,000 plus the state match would be able to get you about 6 of those full-size or minivans, combination of the fleet. That takes you to a total of 1.5 million federal. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to give you guys time to digest this. But I will tell you the reason that we're bringing this forward is because there are 2 ways to do this. One, because the funding was awarded to the city of Battle Creek, the city of Battle Creek can obligate this money on behalf of the TACC. And similar to how the $250,000 went before, the city would hold the contracts for the work that you're doing. Conversely, we could wait until after October 1 of 2025 when the TACC becomes the designated recipient and the TACC could obligate these funds. You likely wouldn't have access to these funds until probably November, somewhere between November and January, by the time FTA approved everything. And that means because you are not a designated recipient yet, and these funds do not come with what's called pre-award authority, which means you can start working on it before you actually obligate the funds, you wouldn't have access to any of these dollars until after that October 1 timeline next year. So it would be up to the board to decide if you want access to those funds now to begin the work now. And in that case, the city would need to obligate those funds on your behalf at what you would resolve to be the budget allocations that you decide. Or you wait until you become the designated recipient and obligate those funds then.
One question, is the city willing to obligate right away?
Yes. Yep. The only thing the city is looking for in this case is a resolution from the TACC directing us on how to obligate those dollars. So this resolution would, okay.
That's right.
Regarding the MDOT match or funding, the 375,
Yes.
would that be distributed
Yes.
between all of these items?
Yes.
Okay.
So it would increase each one just a little bit. Yep.
Is location or storage or warehousing, the buses identified in each city, so to speak? No.
No. And so I will say that is where that planning session comes in and identifying some of those, that lower hanging fruit that we need to decide right away. There will need to be a meeting with each of the 2 cities that currently have assets to establish intentions, right? What are the city's intentions with their facilities and their assets? Is it that they are just going to hand it over to the TACC? Is there compensation expected? What is that agreement? And get a formalized agreement of what those intentions are, both between the city of Battle Creek and the TACC and the city of Marshall and the TACC. Because that is what you need in order to be able to move forward, right? You can't move forward with a plan if you don't know what facility you're going to be operating out of or where you're going to be storing vehicles. I will say The only thing that I wouldn't do on this list of budget line items is order vehicles, because you don't have anywhere to store them. You don't have liability insurance on them, those kinds of things. I would save that for kind of the last option, especially because we already have vehicles that Ride Calhoun could operate or subsidize operation of. I would wait until we figured out the logistical piece of vehicle storage and facilities.
One other thing is for the smaller, well, I guess I'm the only one that has, that doesn't have transportation, training. I'm thinking of not necessarily training of the passengers as well, but the care providers, directors of senior citizen centers and churches and things like that, because we haven't used anything like that. So
Yeah.
you think about training and
That is actually exactly what a mobility manager is. So that is Christy's role. So Christy goes out into the community and she teaches people how to use the systems. And that could be all of the systems, right? So she may go to Albion and say, hey, this is how you book a ride into Battle Creek, and then use the fixed route service once you get into Battle Creek. She goes to schools, she goes to senior centers, she goes to public fairs and such, to educate people about the services that are available and then to teach them how to use them. So she is actually becoming a certified travel trainer, and can work with not only the individual that is traveling, but also the organizations that maybe are caregivers or book travel on behalf of people.
Yeah, that, I think that is going to, a lot of training probably will have to be done.
Yes. And think of a mobility manager as almost like a social worker, but specifically focused on transportation.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
What is the deadline on expending the funds? Is there?
Once it's obligated, there isn't really a deadline. So to get them into the grant, you have the year of award plus 3 years. So the year of award was 2024. We're in 2025. We have 2 more years to get them into a grant. And then from that point on, you establish what your timelines are. So when you submit that grant, you say, I will have these funds expended by, say, 2029.
One question I think will probably come up. So when we did the presentation to the public about the income and the cost and determine the millage, was this, please remind me because I'm forgetting this, was this accounted for? It was not.
No.
So in next year's budget, this actually reduces the burden to the taxpayer or not?
No, because these expenses were not included in that budget at all. So other than capital outlay, which at this point, all of your capital would be accounted for, these expenses were not included in the budget because we knew we already had them covered at 100%.
Okay, got it. Okay, understood. Thank you.
So what you're requesting of us today is a resolution to accept the breakdown of the costs and requests the city of Battle Creek, I'm not sure the exact language.
Obligate the funds on behalf of the TACC.
Okay.
And if you wish to review this further and take action at the next meeting, that is fine. We can start if you decide that the work items are what you want to work on, but you want to adjust dollar amounts or whatever that may be, we can begin working on the application and just wait until the next meeting to submit it. That is completely up to this board on the timing, if you'd like more time to digest it.
Janisha?
I will be in support of just moving forward with the recommendations provided at this time.
That is a motion. Yeah.
So I will move that we adopt the outline and the resolution as presented.
Support.
Further questions for staff?
Thank you for preparing this and walking us through this. Very thorough.
If you have any other questions or think of anything, let me know.
I know Matt will pretty that resolution up, so thank you. Okay, we have a motion to support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? You have direction. Okay. I don't think anything else was added to the agenda. Okay, sir.
Can I ask our friend to just step there for 2 seconds? So I know we talked about letter of intents from the 2 cities.
Yes.
I know we have a conversation scheduled with one. Do we have a second scheduled as yet?
We do not. You mean like with the city of Marshall?
Yeah.
We do not have anything yet with the city of Marshall. I can work on getting something on the calendar. I do think that, so the meeting that is already scheduled is slowly starting to kind of grow in scope and people involved.
Sure.
It may be beneficial to wait and see what parties we need to make sure we have at the table before we schedule a meeting with Marshall. But I might recommend making that just a standing monthly meeting, or maybe even bi-weekly, to keep that letter of intent moving forward, or clear communication channels moving forward. One depends on the other. So.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Okay. That was the end of our new business. This is the section now for public comments. Sir, you've been patiently sitting here, and is there anything that you'd like to ask us? This is an open time, so. Oh, absolutely, please.
So I will, Eric Scott is our head mechanic, currently our only mechanic, but he's also the ATU president.
Okay.
So,
welcome.
ATU is the Amalgamated Transit Union. For those of you who don't know, that is the union that represents almost all of our employees that are not administrative or supervisory staff. And Eric is the president. He is also a longtime transit employee in the maintenance department, and happy to see him here.
Well, thanks for coming.
Doug Farrell, Calhoun County. So I did email your chair and vice chair that we're looking for a representative that was your treasurer previously. I know that's a very specific role to fill. So we're happy to get recommendations from the board. We don't have anyone specifically in mind. So if you have a candidate or candidates that you'd like us to review, we're happy to take those. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I believe they just have to be a resident of Calhoun County. They do not have to be a resident of the 4 cities. Marsha.
Good morning. I was just going to step up
Marsha,
and
could
say,
you introduce yourself? Glad you get it again.
good morning. I'm Marcia Strange. I'm the Director of Community Development for the City of Marshall. And I'm happy to hear all of the plans that are in process. I was really excited to hear all of the policies and stuff that are getting implemented. And I'm eager to kind of engage in those monthly or bi-monthly meetings as we kind of work on that transition from city transit to the TACC. So welcome to the City of Marshall again. And we'll be talking again more. I know Matt has been a great conduit of information for us. So between myself and Derek Perry, I'm sure we'll be well engaged moving forward.
Marsha, you've been on board at the city for 3 weeks.
I think this is week 6,
Okay.
so I'm fairly fresh. But I've been in the City of Marshall for 20 some years. If you don't know me, I'm an architect by trade. Have worked in a variety of firms around Kalamazoo, but when this kind of opportunity arrived to engage with the city and kind of have a great local impact, I was pretty excited to get involved. So anyway, thank you guys.
All right. We're down to board and executive director comments. So since we don't have an executive director yet, board comments, we'll just go around the room. Janesha, anything you'd like to share?
I'm just grateful to all of you for the work that we've been putting in here. I know at the last city commission meeting, there were quite a few comments regarding people receiving their tax bills and feeling like there was no representation for the taxes that have been taken from them now. So I'm happy to hear that we'll have this 30, 60, 90-day plan to roll out so that we can show that things are being done. And that is why I wanted to move forward with Battle Creek obligating those funds to us so that we can get started and have something to show for the work that we're doing here.
Amy?
I don't have anything additional to share.
Vivian?
I would like to ditto in terms of preventative. Because our constituents have not received their tax bills. And so, but I'm sure we're going to hear from them once they receive them. So I would like to, the questions that were asked, if you could share with me some of your answers. At least I'll have some information in terms of similar questions like that, if they should arise. I've just received very, very positive. Thank you. Thank you for thinking of Albion. We're going to be included in an initiative that will be beneficial to our citizens. But I know the rest is coming. So just want to be a little prepared, as well as developing talking points when you meet, to develop talking points that we will have accessible to answer or send directly to you. But if you've already answered that question, this is something that I will be, I can handle in terms of initial contact with further contact coming from TACC. So if you can share those answers with me, that would be helpful.
I have nothing except that keep in mind that our January meeting will be our annual meeting. So there's some formalities that we will need to do at that meeting. And Eric has asked me to help put the agenda together for those. So I'll be digging into the bylaws and all that, if things we have to do at that meeting. So we have a couple of extra weeks here without the last meeting of the month. And then plus it sounds like we'll have a lot of things coming from Clark and Peter. So, and with that, I will wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you all. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Clark.
Thanks, Mallory.